For those that don't know me, I'm Will Russell. I work for Innova Renewables, and we're a owner and operator of solar and battery in the UK. So today I'm going to focus on really a customer lens on what energy buyers should look out for when they're starting their journey on a corporate PPA. So let's kick things off by just going back to basics slightly. What is a corporate PPA? So obviously there are a number of PPAs out there in terms of structure. But to put it simply, it's a long-term contract, both between two parties, the generator and the customer, or the consumer in this case. And then from a high-level perspective, if we're looking at some of the key areas of commercials to think about when you're negotiating, I think it's important just to visualize, a few bits of information like price, term, the pricing mechanism, which you'll come across, the volume, and the operational risk. So when the project's going to be coming online. So let's move our attention to the two different scenarios here. The first scenario at the top is an example of the flow of traditional energy. And as you can see, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of generators that are pushing power to the energy supplier and then delivering that to the customer. Now, this is, from what you can see in the diagram, a less transparent way of purchasing energy compared to the traceable and the additionality facet of a corporate PPA. Scenario 2, to me anyway, highlights the simple mechanism of providing power from a named asset, which is ultimately very important if you're looking at traceable renewable power. You want to know where that site is, where it's located in the country, and ultimately it's about knowing where the power's come from. I think these are two ways to look at the energy market, comparing wholesale energy to PPA energy, but there are obviously a number of other ways that you can transact by buying power through the grid. So let's just look, there are lots of data sets out there, but let's just look at a simple bar chart of the rise in popularity of corporate PPAs in the UK market over the last 10 years. Now, PPAs are obviously very in vogue and get talked about across both businesses, socially, and in the commercial market. But the hard and fast rule here is that they're still a very tiny proportion of the overall installed capacity in the wider market. And whilst there's a growing number in the last 5 years, that they're by no means transactable in simple terms, and they can take a long time to complete. Now, as we're putting our customer hats on today, I think it's very sensible just to go through both the benefits from the customer's perspective, but really understanding from a high-level perspective why developers like ourselves go into this transaction. We've talked about the dedicated source of traceable renewable power earlier on. There's the flexibility of a location, so you don't have to have that named asset right beside your site. You can deliver that power via a sleeving agreement through your supplier. And then there's the long-term price stability. So if you're looking to hedge out and fix your cost certainty over a long period of time. And then I think the most important thing here on the developer side is, we are really looking to help UK businesses to decarbonise their operations and hit some of these ambitious 2030 targets, which are, creeping up on us. So moving on to some of the challenges, I wouldn't go as far as pitfalls because they're all certainly easy to overcome. But we all know, certainly from the gentleman delivering the talk earlier, that contractual terms are very much done on a case-by-case basis, and they can be complex and time-consuming. But the important thing here is getting on board the right stakeholders, working with the right legal counsel, really doing that fundamental research much further than you've potentially done on other legal agreements within your business, because they are specialist agreements. And some of the kind of challenges, just to name a few that we come up time and time again when we're negotiating PPAs with customers, are things like project delivery risk, the intermittency of of the solar generation, and then sometimes it can be kind of the elephant in the room, discussions around credit and what credit mechanisms need to be in place in order to actually satisfy both the customer and the investor who's sitting in that contractual position. So yeah, do as much research on the legal side in terms of appointing and navigating the landscape as much as choosing the right PPA partner. So this is kind of my favourite slide for today. The main reason is because everyone wants to know what the latest PPA prices are in the market, and everyone is really happy to understand whether that fits in with them. But ultimately, it's a balancing act, and whilst you might agree a price early on, it's effectively it's timing. The outlook of the market might change across the PPA negotiations, so you always have to be constant that both sides of the mechanism might be looking for something different. And just to summarise, just before we get to the summary, I've just put some high-level next steps after the takeaways from this presentation. If you are looking to step up and go into the world of PPAs, here are just some things you should be thinking about. It's by no means not easy to deal with key internal stakeholders, but getting them on board would be a big step forward. But just before we get to a few questions, I think for us and for the customer, that dedicated and traceable clean energy and flexible of location is really key in driving this forward towards some of your sustainability targets.